I think you had a caller already from Canada, is that correct?
I did. We have Sharon from Canada. She is asking, how does the valley work and how long does it last? Hey, Sharon, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So are you also listening on your computer, Sharon?
I've turned it off.
Oh, good, because that echo was was getting me confused already. How may we help you today?
My husband and I have December 20th. We work together, so we still talk every day. We run a small business together. We have a special needs child. He comes to me quite frequently with problems. I've been following the marriage helper course, and I've been taking coaching through Jared.
Mm-hmm.
Jared and I discussed that I was in the valley, or that he felt our situation was in the valley. And I was just trying to get some more details on, I guess, exactly how does the valley work? How long does it last? Is there any signs that I can watch for to know the valley is changing?
Mm-hmm. Okay, those are all good questions, and I'm sure that Jared is doing a good job helping because Jared really understands things and works really well. Let me just give you the brief version. Are you hearing an echo? I'm hearing an echo as well, Sharon, and it's sorry if
I am too.
I don't know where that echo is coming from. It must be something happening on our end. I am so sorry. Okay, the valley basically means this. It's when a person is in relationship with a spouse and also in relationship to another person. Now, the valley can exist not just with another person, but another situation. But since it's your husband's involved with another person, is that correct?
Yes, he is. Yes,
okay.
And he has been
Right.
since he left our. Yeah.
Since he left, I'm sorry?
Since he, I guess, walked out of our marriage or our family.
Okay.
He was with her, I guess, so in an affairs relationship with her prior to.
And how long has that been?
Since December 2017.
2017, so over a year. Okay. Now, because you have a business together and you're interacting with each other, all right, here's how we generally define or explain or describe, whatever word you want to choose, the valley. The valley is when they're in a relationship with you, but they're also in a relationship with the other person. And right now, they don't have to make a decision because they kind of have the best of both worlds. You understand? It's like, okay, I'm getting from you what it is that I want or need from you, but I'm also getting from her what I want or need from her. And because she's tolerating that, because you're tolerating that, it means I don't have to make any kind of decision. I can just keep doing what I'm doing. And that's what we call the valley. And people in the valley don't feel compelled really to make many decisions because right now I don't have to. Now, you were asking, okay, how long does it last? And the answer to that is it differs with everybody. In a general sense, it lasts like this. It lasts as long as it at least has some degree of comfort. Okay? In other words, I can do this because I'm not being pushed or pulled in either direction, and therefore I'm just going to let it ride as long as it can. And so can that be months? Yeah. In your case, can it be well over a year? The answer is yeah, it can. Now, I think if I heard Amber correctly, the other part of the question is like, are there signs of it? What was that?
Right. If there's signs like to show that it was dwindling or there's changes being made in terms of where he stands and if he's coming out of the valley potentially.
Okay. So if a person starts going more in one direction than the other, for example, if he starts evolving away from you and closer to her, then that would be a sign that it might be coming to an end. Just as if it went the other way, that he has less to do with her and starts evolving into a relationship where he's closer and closer to you. And typically that's a sign the valley is coming toward an end. When people ask me, well, should I pull the plug? Should I stop this valley? Should I set some kind of a boundary or criteria, those kinds of things? Like we call them stops and cores, but that's a different program. Then here's my suggestion on that. Now, obviously, it is always your decision. But my suggestion is as follows, that if it's doing damage, not just if it hurts, because obviously this hurts, but if it's doing damage to you, or if you have children involved, if it's doing damage to them, or believe it or not, even if it's doing damage to your spouse, then If it's doing damage to you physically, I mean, your health is beginning to fail. You begin to have physical problems you weren't having before, and those problems might become problematic. At least they're aggravating, but maybe starting to become problematic. Intellectual, if there's being damage there, meaning that you're finding a tough time to think about the things you need to think about, to do your job, for example, to interact with other people. Emotionally, if it's damaging. Now remember, I'm not talking about just hurt, but I'm talking about damage, so that you're becoming an emotional wreck. You're nervous about everything. You find yourself crying all the time, where that is actually damaging you, or your children, or even the spouse, or if it's damaging you spiritually, which means that because of the situation, you're beginning to violate or vacate your own beliefs and values, meaning what you believe is right, what you believe you should be doing, the way you should behave, so that you're becoming a different person than who you used to be, and it's not an improvement. Or your children are becoming different people than who they used to be, and it's not an improvement. Or your spouse becomes a different person than he used to be, and it's not an improvement. In other words, not just some shift, not just some pain, but you actually see a pattern developing. Things are going south. In those cases, we suggest you might seriously consider it's time to set up some stops or some cores so that you say, I can't let this continue to go on. I'm going to have to force something to happen. And the way you force it is by setting what people typically call boundaries, we call stops, or what other people call criteria, which we call cores. And you set this up and say, this has to stop happening, or there's going to be a consequence, or this has to start happening. That's the criteria, if you will, or there's going to be a consequence. And so the short answer is there is no short answer. It can go on for a long period of time if the person feels he or she doesn't have to do anything. And so if he's evolving one way or the other, yeah, it's headed toward an end. Or if you say, I don't want myself being damaged, or him being damaged, or my kids being damaged, that's when you start setting those criteria or those stops and those cores. And when you do that, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be pleasant, because it may well be that he will not do what you're asking or requesting that he does. So you don't set up the cores and the stops thinking, well, this is definitely going to control the other person. That's not what they're for. They're saying, I just can't let things continue as they are now. And therefore, the decision they make may not be a decision that you want, but you make those decisions because the damage is being done, and you've got to stop the damage. Amber, help me clarify that better.
I honestly think you did I think you did a great job, but I did want to say one thing, and I know Sharon's been proactive and she's clearly meeting with a coach, but I just want to say that if other people are listening and somehow relate to what Sharon's asking, or if, similar scenario, and you aren't working with a coach, I would really recommend that you at least call in about it. What a lot of people don't realize about my story is that if they've seen my testimony video, or if they've even talked to me on the phone, they've probably picked up that I'm a firecracker, and I'm passionate. But sometimes if your passion is misguided and misdirected, it's going to create a bigger issue. You have the drive to save your marriage, you're committed, that's not the question, but sometimes your passion gets in the way, or your emotion. And so it's hard when it comes to stops, or what we used to call, boundaries. And so I think you did a great job answering, and I think Sharon's been very prudent in asking a great question, but and the fact that she's working with Jared shows that she's been very disciplined in making sure she doesn't take this lightly. So.
Sharon, is this helping at all?
It is, yes. Thank you so much. I do appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, Sharon.
Thank
and
you.
I surely hope things get better. I really do.
Absolutely.